What's up, everybody? Rothstein here, Betting Public Sports Show. I'm your beloved host, Fame Rothstein, a.k.a. Michael Snackson. Today is Tuesday, January, I believe it's the 26th, maybe the 27th of 2026. We're still, coming out from snow. The main roads are being, they're passable now. Those side streets now, it's hell. But anyway, I just left the courthouse down there, picking up some info on a project I'm about to work on, and it dawned on me. I always see this post on X about it'll say something like, what scam has been so normalized that we forgot it's a scam? And I got two of them. I'm going to give you one on here and I'll give you one on another day. But the one I'm going to give you now, because I just left court, the public defender, that's a scam and a half. I've dealt with them. Now, I didn't have to deal with one today, but I've dealt with them. But think about this. You're charged with a crime. The state or your local or the local village or whatever. And if that crime is punishable by jail time, you have to be presented. You have to be represented with an attorney, a comparable a competent attorney. That's if you can't afford one will be given to you. That's the public defender. When you can't afford a real lawyer. And that public defender is paid by who? The same people that are charging you with a crime. Whether it's the state of Ohio versus, Joe Johnson, or it's your local village, local village of blah, blah, blah versus Joe Johnson, or, your township, Black and Mild Township versus, Joe Johnson or whatever. So essentially, that same jurisdiction that is charging you is paying for your defense. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that they're paying for your defense? And those of us who've dealt with public defenders know that they're not. They're just representing you, so that because that person's going to be the person to say, because what they're hoping that you say is that, hey, I don't really care about the charge. I just don't want to go to jail. I just don't want to have to spend no time in the joint. And so, they go out there and get you, get you a deal that requires hella fines, hella probation, 6 months or more probation, a year or more probation, hundreds of dollars in fines that comes out of your pocket, out of your family, and all that, and then there you have it. So basically, like I said, the person the people, the jurisdiction that charged you, whether it's state, city, whatever, the people that charged you pay for your defense, pay for you to represent, pay for your representation. Because those public defenders, if they don't work for the actual county, and on the payroll, getting benefits and everything, they work for a law firm, or they're retired. They're retired from an old law firm and just trying to get, some couple bucks. They probably get $300 to $500 per case. $300 to $500 per case. Or, like I said, if they work for the actual public defender's office, they're getting, 50 some odd grand a year. 50 or more grand a year, depending on how long they've been there. And, or like I said, or they're a retiree just doing some work or whatever, just to get a couple dollars. And if they work directly for the public defender's office, oh boy, they've got a caseload of probably, 20, 30 or more cases a month. They really don't give a fuck about your well-being. They just need to get the case off of their hands. They don't give a damn about your well-being. They don't tell you about all them damn plea bargains add up. And they still follow you. Nobody goes to court saying that. Nobody, when your license plate is jammed, gets ran through, it just shows a conviction. It don't say that you pled to, public drunkenness or, DV, domestic violence. They don't say that you pled to it to get it over with. It just shows a conviction. And so that public defender a lot of times doesn't tell you the true ramifications of you just taking that deal and getting out of there, and they don't give you the what could happen to you later down the road, other than the fact that they'll lock you, throw you in jail if you're still on probation. That's the only thing they're caring about. They don't think about the bigger picture. And I just think that's just a scam. I mean, think about that. Go to your job right now, whether you're a teacher or you work at McDonald's or something, or whatever you do. You're an accountant. Go to your job right now and tell your job, hey, you're wrong. Because that's what essentially a public defender is. To tell them to tell their job that they're wrong. You're wrong about this. You're wrong about that. How long are you gonna be there? You keep telling your job that they're wrong. How long are you gonna be at that job before they just dump you? You expect these public defenders to go in there and actually really go in and throw hands for you? Throw legal hands for you in the courtroom? No, they're not. I do know there are, just like there are some people with 6 fingers and 6 toes, there are some public defenders that actually go in there and throw them legal hands for you. They're few and far between, but they do. And most of them go on to bigger, better things. Because they realize, this is small time shit. Most of those public defender guys that work directly for the office, the county or whatever, they couldn't get a job at a law firm. Most of them. That's not an insult to anybody who's a public defender. Most of them couldn't get a job at a regular law firm. Or couldn't get a job at the right pay at a normal law firm. So, they're working at the public defenders until they can get that job. But most of them don't do that. Most of them don't do that because it's a skill thing. It's a skill thing. So, yeah. And so they go in there and they go to they go work for their state. They go working for the state. They might even do 10 years. Then they come out 10 years, they got lifetime benefits. And after they got, lifetime benefits, then they go off on their own. They get, those state and federal benefits are a motherfucker. If you look at a state employee or federal employee benefits, look at their benefits package, especially federal. Those benefit packages are sweet. And so most of them will do that. And then, 10 years, now that they got the health insurance and whatnot for their kids and whatnot, for life, they'll go out and do work off on their own. But some of them, I guarantee there's a public defender down there in your city, in your town, who's been a lifer. He's been there for 30 years since he graduated college. He or she has been a public defender working in that office that whole time. Just like you see on like those memes on social media. If your lawyer has pants like this or has shoes like this, you going to jail. Yeah, those are the ones who are the public defenders of 30, 40 years. Been there for since they graduated law school. 25. They work 30 years. They're 55 years, and it's usually like a 50-year-old dressing weird like that. 55-year-old. So yeah, the public defender's office is one of the biggest scams that America deals with that we don't talk about. Like how are you supposed to really represent somebody against their employer? How are you supposed to truthfully and honestly Give somebody, your best representation against your employer. You know what I'm saying? Because in some of these things with public defenders, yeah, it's been like, things like a DUI, no crash, things like they ain't never went in there. I ain't never heard of a public defender going there and get some murder. I'm sure there has. That went up there and tried to really throw them things for you, like on a murder, but usually no. And then a lot of times public defenders will drop the case because you want too much that they can't do. Things like that. So, talk about that in the comments. What do you think? Do you find out a scam? The public defender's office. What other scams do we talk about? What other things are scams that we don't talk about enough as being scams? Huh? Those questions and more will be answered on the next episode of Soap. Leave it in the comments, share, like, subscribe. All right, and I'll holler. Be safe.